Hello everyone. When I say social media has a flip side, it's not a merchant of virtue. I do not mean to denigrate it. I'm not rather denigrating it. Rather, I look at social media invention as the biggest revolutionary invention after the invention of printing press, or then radio, and then television or telephone. Any media, any mode of communication which enhances our ability to communicate, to express ourselves, is a step in the evolutionary process of human beings. In fact, if social media has a flip side, then the conventional media also had a flip side. But let me tell you how I look at social media inventions. Social media I look at in the same spirit when John Milton, the great poet, he defended the free speech in 1644. And then the American Constitution virtually gave absolute right to freedom of expression to citizens and to make a representation to the government. And then in 1859, when John Stuart Mill said that freedom of expression was a necessary condition of a flourishing society. And then came our transformative constitution in 1950, when we gave ourselves the right to free speech for strengthening our young democracy. And even now we are exercising this right unhindered, and our Supreme Court has contributed in a great manner in exercising our right to free speech. When I say social media has a flip side, I'm not biased, I'm not prejudiced. I'll tell you a story about conventional media, printing or radio or telephone. 1920s was a great troublesome decade for Indian freedom struggle, and in that year in 1924, a pamphlet was published in Lahore, the then undivided Punjab, which was taken to be prejudicial or derogatory against a religious figure, and then Punjab descended into turmoil for almost 7 years. Publisher was killed, assassin was hanged, Hindus and Sikhs who were in minority in certain areas, they were forced to leave that area. Ultimately, the government had to amend the Indian Penal Code and insert a new section to punish this kind of speech. But I'm more worried now. Why? I'm worried now because social media is impacting our younger generation, people like you, more than anybody else. Secondly, social media gives us opportunities to interact with so many people at a click, one to one, one to many. Conventional media was much more regulated, censored, but now we are our own publishers. We can create anything, we can publish anything. There is no limitation. Social media companies are also not responsible, they are not accountable because they are not publishers. We are the publishers. We have to take care that we do not spread bad speech. That is why I am worried. That is why I want to caution you people, younger generation. As a police officer, having worked in the police department for almost 32 years, I know how many sleepless nights, how many days I have spent on the road only because of some bad speech being circulated on social media. But I'm more worried about certain, rather 3 issues which you must think of and you must work on them. You must educate others also. Hate speech is not new to India, as I told you. Social media is spreading hate speech. It may be unintentional, it may be inadvertent, it may be because we are not experienced as a younger generation or other people. But yes, we are spreading hate speech, bad speech. And now I'm more worried about symbolic violence. Symbolic violence The concept was given by French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu. He said that symbolic speech is reflected in values, emotions, moral and cultural practices. It involves instruments like language, symbols, signs, etc., what we daily see now, social media platforms now. And this is non-physical violence, non-physical tactics rather, which we also call violence. They are used by socially dominant groups to impose their values, beliefs, and understandings on subordinated groups. If you properly see social media, what is happening on it today, you will see that symbolic violence is reflected very much on these platforms. We have to check it. We have to think before clicking or liking anything else. And it is a double-edged weapon. I'll tell you another story, how it is a double-edged weapon. Even if you are exercising your own right of free speech, perfectly legal, perfectly constitutional, you may be prosecuted, you may be persecuted. In 2012, there was a very significant event in Maharashtra, political event, because of which the entire state was shut down. All shops were closed. A young lady like you, I think 11th or 12th class student, she posted on Facebook, why town should be shut down because of this particular event or like this event. Her friend liked it, simply liked it. And this brought police to their doorsteps. They were arrested, they were prosecuted, ultimately discharged, nothing happened. But case went to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court struck down that particular law and provided them relief. That is how social media works. Even if you are exercising your perfectly legal or perfectly constitutional right, you may be prosecuted, you may be persecuted. That is the point I want to make, that you should be very, very careful while using social media. Second point which I want to make is about violence, again symbolic violence, hate speech, and maybe domestic violence also, and for which social media is being used. That is technology facilitated gender-based violence. This kind of violence with the use of technology, media. Now, this violence is being perpetrated with the help of social media against women, against LGBTQ communities, against lower classes, and against the minorities. We have to be very, very careful while interacting on social media and endorsing such views, because they cause psychological harm, they lead to mental health problems to the victims to whom we are targeting, as well as ourselves, especially people like you, younger generation. That is the concomitant or consequences of the using of social media or kind of conversation or interaction which are happening on social media now. A study was conducted by United States Agency for International Development in 2021. It was an online survey in Asia, and they revealed, while they made their presentations late 22, that technology facilitated gender-based violence has increased in India, in other Asian countries, even in Western countries also for that matter, everywhere, all across the globe. We have to prevent that. We have to take care that we are not advertently or inadvertently using this technology to harass other people or to commit some kind of violence, direct or symbolic violence. When I say that symbolic violence means media is a very, social media is a very violent space, you may look around and say, how come, how it can happen? But these are the two issues which I wanted to stress and tell you as a police officer, because I have experienced, I have investigated such cases where social media has been used in this particular manner. Symbolic violence, though, has not been adequately researched, and scholars have not paid much attention to this particular type of violence, because we all know the direct violence, naked physical violence. And when I give example, and I want to pose a question now. Hannah Arendt, German-American sociologist, philosopher. She wrote a book in 1969 on violence. She posed a she articulated rather, very significant observation she made that all political systems in the world have rather supported technical development of implements of perpetrating direct, naked physical violence. And this particular violence for winning wars, creating some implements, technical implements, they are now beyond that all those political goals for which they were created. She said that if today we fight war, use the nuclear weapons, no side will win. No side will win that war. Everybody will be loser. She was writing in 1969, Cold War era. But before that, if you remember, if you recall, Holocaust, 2 world wars, and the Stalin era, and some other such events, technically developed weapons, even Hiroshima and Nagasaki, was perpetrated with the help of technically developed atomic bombs. So all these events, they had some elements where technically developed implements were used. Now I want to pose this question, whether social media is a technically developed implement for spreading hate, perpetrating symbolic violence. I personally feel yes, this is a new technical weapon developed, supported by political systems also. Because for the sake of commerce, for the sake of free speech, internet and social media was provided or granted immunity and impunity in certain form, like safe harbor clauses, and now that was replicated all over the world, but now there is a rethink is going on that how it should be changed and how these companies, social media platforms should be made accountable. But now thinkers are thinking about it, intellectual thinkers, they are all thinking about it, what should be done about it and how they should be reined in, how they should be made accountable, how they should be regulated. I remember one speech by American comedian Sacha Baron Cohen. He said that about the social media and invasion of privacy, etc., that we need to rethink about, rather fundamentally rethinking about these social media platforms, because evidence-based argument space is now shrinking. How we can bring in evidence, how we can stop fake news, how we can stop hate speech, that is the question for us now. But nobody was more forthcoming or blunter than Tim Cook. He is CEO of Apple, and he delivered a commencement speech to Stanford students in June 2019. That is what he said. He said there in that speech, and fortunately I was present listening to that speech in that huge sprawling stadium in Palo Alto, and he said, but whether you like it or not, that you build and what you create defines who you are. He continued. He said that he directly called out these social media platforms, technical or internet platforms. He called out to take responsibility. He said, it feels a bit crazy that anyone has to say like this, but if you have built a chaos factory, you cannot dodge responsibility. For the chaos, taking responsibility means having the courage to think through the things. He very meaningfully said, very, very meaningfully and very, very thoughtful for you people today, the younger generation, and every social media user. I have learned one thing he said. It is that technology does not change who we are. It's a fact. That doesn't change who we are. But it magnifies who we are. It magnifies who we are, the good and the bad. My friends, at the end, my advice is, we have no choice. We have to side with the good, not with the bad. What we have to magnify through these social media platforms, that is the good, not the bad. Please rise up to the occasion, take sides, and take sides for good cause. Thank you so much.